This is the Military Bottom Line Podcast, episode 77.
Understanding that transitioning to civilian life, nothing is ever owed to you. You're not entitled to anything. Just because being a veteran is a different level of status and everything, but at the same time, don't go into a job thinking they're going to hire you just because you're a veteran.
Yeah. Welcome to the Military Bottom Line Podcast, where we learn from veterans and those currently serving how to make the most out of a military contract. We're here to motivate, inspire, and help you leverage your service to positively impact you professionally, personally, and financially during your military career and beyond. What's going on, everybody? It has been so long since we have really gotten together, done a podcast, and shared somebody else's experiences with you guys. So for all those that have actually stayed involved and continued tuning into the podcast episodes, even though they have not been interviews, it really means the world to me, and I can't thank you enough. And I really hope that in this interim, where I've been off doing kind of content based on the benefits only, I really hope you found some value in that and have learned about benefits that you guys should be taking advantage of. But if you guys have had a chance to listen to the last episode, I shared kind of a part of my story and the reason for the long delay, how things are kind of changing on the podcast platform for me. And so if you haven't heard that part of the story, that's where you're going to hear kind of like what happened and kind of what put me in my dark place that I had to figure out last year and kind of take a step back and refocus and reorient where my goals were. So I'm excited to do podcasts again, and I'm excited for tonight's episode with Victor. And it's really given me, a realization of how much I really enjoy meeting with these guys and girls, doing podcast episodes and having just great conversation. And so tonight I'm honored to introduce you guys to Victor Vichith. Victor is a first generation American. His parents came from war-torn country in Southeast Asia. And he was in college when he decided to forgo that despite his parents' preference and join the Army instead. And so Victor's been in the Army now for 13 years, the combination of active duty and reserves. He's done a lot of unique civilian employment, and he kind of talks about his transition and the difficulty that came along with that, even though from the outside, everything was smooth sailing. And so now Victor's kind of reoriented his life. He's gone through some practices to kind of better understand where he should be going. And now he's just been recently accepted into a top tier MBA program. And he shares a lot of wisdom about how to do that and the decisions that he made along with that. So I'm really excited for you guys to tune in, hear Victor's story. And he is a wealth of knowledge for anybody that wants to reach out to him after the episode. I definitely recommend it. But with all that said, I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. Good evening, Victor. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, Jason. Thank you for having me. And such an awesome podcast or opportunity that you have going on right now, especially helping military veterans. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for reaching out. I know we connected a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about, you were doing some big things. And so, we wanted to kind of wait to publish your story until you kind of found out some answers. So I'm excited to kind of dive into your life story, hear about your time in the military, and hear kind of how you're transitioning out and working on bigger things. So I'd love to kind of get a background before we get too far into it about kind of your upbringing and what made you join the military in the first place.
Right. That's always like the biggest question, I feel like, because I've gotten that question a lot before too. And to be honest with you, when I was 18, 19 years old, I have no idea. I think it's, to be honest with you, I didn't come from a military family. I didn't come from a military background at all. I had no idea what the military entailed. My parents were refugees from war-torn countries, in Southeast Asia. And so I feel like, even when joining the military, I was just bored at the time. And I was my first year of college, and I wanted to do something more or something different. So I went to the recruiters, and and I feel like the recruiters didn't really give me the full information about what the military entails or anything at all. Sure. But I did feel like there was something to do. So I took the ASVAB and just said, hey, screw it, I'll join the military. I'll do this.
So
Um,
you were in college at the time and you decided to enlist?
yeah, I was my first year of college. I was studying arts actually because I was trying to get into an art program and everything.
Gotcha.
So I mean, to be honest, I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Sure. None of us do.
Yeah, exactly. And we were so young, and and at the same time, my parents were always telling me just go to college. You'll
Mm,
figure it out when you graduate. And I felt like that wasn't my calling at a time, or that wasn't my purpose, just to finish college.
mm,
And I think that going into the military, that route that I explored, it was all about just diving into it and taking advantage of every opportunity going forward. So I think learning about the military step by step while I was in it was the best
yeah.
information I received.
I'm curious. I mean, forgive my ignorance on this. What's the dynamic like, being a first generation American where your parents immigrated from a war torn country and then you join the military to, you know, basically pursue war in a sense. Uh, how did they react
Right.
to that? What was that like?
They did not like it at all.
Okay. All right.
It's interesting you mention that because all they knew from the military, from the army side, was all they seen were conflicts and death and people around them dying. For example, my father. I have a strong feeling my father doesn't he doesn't share a lot of these stories, but
Mm,
when you put like five shots of Hennessy back, then you start hearing these stories.
yeah, of
And then
course.
he always talk about how he lost his cousins, lost his brothers while crossing rivers,
Mm,
escaping like the communist regime in
mm,
Laos during that time.
wow.
And so that's all they knew about conflict. And my mother too. My mother and her family escaped because my grandfather, her father on that side, worked for the government, which were being kicked out of the country
Mm,
during that time frame. So all they knew was just destruction around them. And when I told them I wanted to go in the military, there were a lot of resentment or a lot of pushback, saying, "I don't think that's a good idea.
yeah.
We're willing to do anything you want, just don't join the military."
Wow. Wow.
So it was a definitely different perspective, different take on it. That's not how they feel now because throughout the past 13 years, they've learned to kind of, take in from my experience alone.
Sure. Sure. And I imagine they've seen the good that's come out of it for you also to kind of offset their initial feelings towards it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And Jason, you're totally correct about that because they realize that when I joined the military in the army, that I became more regimented and more structured
Mm,
in what I wanted to do and what I wanted to pursue. And they also saw that I loved what I did as well.
cool.
And I think
Cool.
that's what made them happy.
That's awesome.
And coming from the cultural background, it's everything that I came from. It's all about the community, so it's always
Mm,
about making sure that you give back to the community as well. So they saw a huge return for that side too.
cool. Cool. That's awesome. So, is there a reason why you chose the army out of all the branches, or is that you just landed there?
So real talk, I chose the army because the Marine recruiter at that time stepped out to lunch.
Ah, gotcha. Gotcha.
No offense to the Marines or anything. I'm just saying that was I took the ASVAB with the Marine Corps and everything. Just
Yeah,
at that moment in time when I was ready, they were out to lunch,
that's funny
and so I
because
walked over to the Army recruiter.
yeah, there's often some small caveat to each person's story that explains why they went with one branch and not the other. Like I was going to join the Air Force, but the Air Force recruiter didn't show up to my meeting, and so the Marines saw me standing outside in the cold, and they're like, "Hey, man." So that's how it
Right.
goes.
It's just by chance sometimes, and
Yeah,
it's funny how time aligns and where we end up in our path in our lives. I feel like
yeah.
it's just a chance. And, to this day, I keep thinking about what if I waited another 20 minutes
Mm,
or what if, I would chose this career path.
yeah.
And
Cheers.
yeah, and it kind of brings you into a very weird existential crisis when you keep thinking about that. Where would you
Yeah,
be?
that's why I don't think about it much. Just let the cards play how they do.
Right, right.
Were you so I mean you're saying you were first year college, you were kind of bored, not too excited about what was in front of you. Did you I mean, were you looking for something specifically to accomplish or to get out of the army, or you just wanted some excitement and to change things up a bit?
I think it was to change things up a bit, to be honest with you. It wasn't for the fact that, I wanted to seek a specific path or anything. I didn't even know what any of the jobs in the military were.
Yeah.
At all.
Really?
I had zero research going in.
Gotcha.
I didn't have the support system or the mentorship I had prior to joining the military.
Yeah.
It was just by chance that, I decided to do that and then actually followed through with it too. So that was a very interesting career path, because when I took the ASVAB and did all the assessments prior to joining the military, the recruiters and the folks at the MEPS at the military entrance processing station was like, hey, there's these options you can choose from. Which one do you want to do?
Yeah.
And I was like, I guess intelligence sounds cool.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. Give us like a 30,000-foot view of what your
Right.
career has looked like. What is it? Active duty, reserves, what the job was, where you were stationed most of the time? How'd that go for you?
Right. So I went to the MEPS. I wanted to go on the active duty side.
Okay.
And I would definitely wanted to, I didn't know what job I wanted to push for it, but I think the person at the MEPS was like, hey, you scored an ASVAB score that allows you to have these jobs. What do you want to do? And that was like the biggest question of all. I felt like I could have chosen like a list of jobs. And then I was like, you know what? I want to try intelligence because I don't know too much about it, but it seems interesting enough. And they also said something about top secret clearance, and that sounds cool, I guess. And that was my thought process in my head. It's like, oh, top secret clearance. I don't know what that is, but that sounds cool.
Yeah.
So I joined into being a geospatial intelligence analyst, which in the Army is coded as a 35 Golf. I know in the Marine Corps they have something very similar as well, where our job entailed just looking at maps, looking at images to depict what it is that we see that could help decision makers.
Cool.
Whether it's on an imagery or whether it's on a video.
Gotcha.
Sort of say. So,
is that something that you enjoyed once you got into it, or were you like, man,
I did.
What the heck did I get myself into?
I was very fortunate to be in a position where I worked in specialized units and special operation units around the Army. And I was also very fortunate where I had the opportunity to work within the intelligence community, in the U.S. intelligence community, where there's all these different agencies we're working with too. So it was like a lot of joint environments where I had the exposure of not just Army or big Army as a whole, but more in tune with what I was doing.
Gotcha.
And I truly enjoyed that career field a lot, especially my time serving with the Special Operation Commands, because you get to see your actions or your decisions actually follow, or the assessments you provide actually create these decision points that actually create actions, from pretty much start to finish.
Yeah.
And I felt like, I was in a fortunate position where not a lot of people in the military experience that, but I, had the opportunity to deploy with these units to really integrate myself well into that community.
Cool.
So I had the luxury of that. And at the same time, I felt like, it was worthwhile doing the job. However, I did hit a pinnacle part of my career field where I felt like, maybe I want to switch different MOS now. So that's where I transitioned to become a counterintelligence special agent in the Army.
Okay. So how far into your career were you at that point when you decided to switch over?
I would say I was about 6 years in.
6 years. Okay. Already. Which, as an Intel, you had a 6-year contract initially, or 5-year? What was that initial contract like?
The initial contract was a 4-year contract.
4-year. Okay. So then you re-enlisted.
Yep.
Still active duty. And then at 6 years, you decided to switch over a little bit?
That's correct. Yeah, I was coming to the end of my time serving with the Special Operation Command down at Fort Bragg. And I decided to go into the counterintelligence career field, which at that time you have to be an NCO in the Army and then be assessed prior to getting to the schoolhouse. So, and I felt that, it was exciting to know that, you get to try out for something or being assessed for something. And I felt like, a lot of the people I met in that career field were actually top their game or top their league where it comes down to, the job they were doing. And maybe it was just being sold that way. I don't know, but it could, who knows, right? But at that time, I felt like it was exciting. I was like, you know what, I'll put my packet in for this and see where I end up.
Nice.
So
nice.
After interviews and after being assessed for it, I felt like and they decided that they wanted to move on with my application. So that's where I was selected to go to the career field, to go into the career field of counterintelligence.
Did that?
I think in the Marine. Sorry, go ahead. I was say I think the Marine Corps is the same exact thing where only NCOs could apply for it, and they still have to be assessed to get into the career field too.
Yeah, I understand that to be true. Yeah, it's a little bit. It's a little exclusive in that sense.
Right.
Did that require you an additional obligation to the Army?
Yes, it did. So it required an extra. I had to re-enlist again.
Okay.
I had to extend the contract itself to be like another 3 years at least.
3 years. So that's going to bring you out to like 9 years.
8 years.
8 years,
yeah.
okay.
I was at a 5-6. Yeah. I mean, it was roughly around that time frame where I served one duty assignment as a counterintelligence special agent in the Army. And that's when I went to Stuttgart, Germany.
Gotcha. Okay. Did you, like from the beginning, were you thinking, oh, I'm going to do 20 years in the Army? Or was it just like 4 years gone? Like, all right, yeah, I'll stay and I kind of like this. Like, how are you making these decisions to stay? Was it just, it sounded better than getting out? Or like, was this the plan all along?
I think my decision to continue my career path at that moment in time was just the excitement that I was chasing too. I also felt like there was a lot more that I wanted to learn within the military. I didn't really have a reason to get out the moment in time. I enjoyed the people I was with. I enjoyed the material I was learning. I was fortunate to be in a very in a command that had a very high operational tempo, and it was exciting. And the next assignment I had, it allowed me to travel and it allowed me to be overseas as well. Cool. So it was kind of a situation where like I didn't have a reason to leave at the moment in time.
Yeah. And
I truly enjoyed, my time in the military.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think a lot of people look for reasons to leave, and it's like it's okay to not look for reasons to leave. And if if you're enjoying what you're doing and you don't want to go pursue something else, then by all means stay. And so I know that.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Yep. Sorry.
No, you're good. I was gonna say, because I know that you, from what I understand, because now you're in the reserves and now you're pursuing something on the civilian side too. And so something within the last several years changed for you where you wanted to kind of make a civilian career the priority. And so how did that transition in mindset come about?
So it was in 2017, end of 2017, where my time was coming to an end, and 9 months before I transitioned out of the Army, I knew I wasn't going to re-enlist just because I've heard so much about these other opportunities on the other side, just because now I have a top secret clearance. Yeah. I have these skill sets. There's so many opportunities on the civilian side. So I started poking around in a job market because of that, especially as a government contractor or serving as a contractor within the intelligence community. I wanted to pursue that. So it's interesting where even a year out from actually leaving active duty, I already had recruiters calling me because I posted my resume on these websites already. Wow. I had recruiters calling me. I've already gotten interviews. They even flew me out to the States to do a assessment as well.
You were in Germany at the time, and they flew you to the US. Dude,
yes,
yeah, that's sweet.
I got flown. I had to do an assessment for one of the jobs that I was applying for, and so they actually flew me out to the States. Did my assessment and everything, and then I flew back to Germany again. So I was already in the process of leaving already, like a year out, and I was just doing job interviews after job interviews.
Unreal. And dude, that's one of those things where it's like, no other job is going to allow you to start preparing for another job a year out.
It's crazy. I was in a weird, because I was telling my counterparts the same exact thing where I felt like I was hustling at that time, just for jobs, just like I poked at this one thing for a little bit of time and I kept poking at it. And then next thing you know, like all these jobs start emailing and start wanting to do interviews a year out, because the process for some of these places can take 6 months to a year to get you through. So there's this one position that I applied for that did take about 8 months for them to process.
Wow.
So they wanted to start me early.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, especially within the realms of the intelligence community.
Yeah.
There's this weird thing where they have to cross over your security clearance and all that stuff. And
gotcha.
So you kind of have to start pretty early. So my advice to a lot of service members that do have these security clearance, definitely start really early.
Good to know.
Because I know it's very far and few for those in between, for those that are serving right now, but I feel like you never know, how long these processes would take, and you don't want to be in that weird gap zone either, especially between leaving and starting a new job.
Totally.
So you just you really have to hustle out there.
Yeah. And I mean, I try to tell most people that like the transition process should start really day one of your contract, because, you never know when you're going to get out, and you never really know how long the transition is going to take you. So the earlier you start, the better. Not like, 1 year out's great, but if you can start 4 years out, it's even better.
At least start learning about it. Start learning about it or reading about it somewhere, and then it's all about self-progression and career development in your own self. It's not just about trying to find a next job. It's more about how well can you fine-tune your skills now to benefit yourself in the future.
Totally.
And that's kind of the mindset I had. I was very fortunate to have very good, really good mentors in the military that actually taught me that said, hey, we shouldn't, the moment you realize that you should do something, it might be too late. You have to proactively pursue these opportunities as time goes on.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did, my time before I left the military. So I knew I was leaving. I knew I wasn't going to re-enlist or anything at all. I went to the reserves. But at the same time, I knew that I had a job lined up for me the moment I left active duty.
Yeah. Were you relying like solely on your security clearance and your intel experience from the Army, or did you pick up a degree? Did you finish your degree while you're in the Army, or like what was the?
It's funny you mentioned I never thought I would ever finish a degree in my life.
Really?
I didn't even start my degree program or anything at all while I was in the Army. When I was in active duty, I relied on my security clearance and my job experience.
Wow.
And also my own ability to sell my skill sets at that time.
That's
so,
huge.
I knew I was going at a junior grade and I was competing against a lot of other people too. But I've also taken the opportunity to kind of like ask around of all the other government contractors I work with, because when I was in the military, I worked a lot with government contractors too, especially within the special operation community.
Yeah,
it was a joint command where there was contractors, joint services, government employees are there too. So I was fortunate enough to ask them and pick their brains while I was on the ops floor with them. Too. Cool. So cool. And I realized that, hey, you could pretty much pursue these opportunities too. Just have to know the right people, I guess.
Yes.
At the same time, can articulate the resume or make your resume a certain way.
Totally. Yeah, and people like to kind of like blame it, like, oh, I'm an introvert, or I'm, I don't like to talk to strangers or whatever. But like there's so many opportunities to like meet and greet and network in the military, that like so many people pass it up just because they're like scrolling through their phone or something. And to, clearly taking that initiative to have those conversations and ask those questions really benefited you in, getting that first job outside of the military.
Right. And I think, it was beneficial. It just happened by almost luck, where like we were on a 12-hour operations floor together. What else is there to talk about besides ways to make more money?
Yeah.
So so it's weird because like a lot of the intelligence career field, they have a very poor retention rate because of these professionals, and there were soldiers in that career field always want to leave after 4 years, after 5 years.
Gotcha. Because they have marketable skills and a marketable Security clearance.
Yeah, clearance, security clearance, skill sets. I mean, the ability to work in cross-functional environments, work in different teams as well. So it's just it was definitely an opportunity of it itself. And I tell a lot of the guys who are still in the career field this too, that the career field's great, but you also have to assess where the market is at too, because there's a lot of positions that are contractors, let's say, that are paying just as much if you were still an E5 in the Army.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
you really have to assess that yourself. And then that's another thing about transitioning, like they don't tell you how much exactly you have to make in certain areas. They do, but then again, they don't. It's weird when I was going through SFL TAP and everything, what they explained to us.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you transitioned out of active duty in 2017 and you decided to switch to the reserve. So you made the decision to stay in.
Yes.
Keep your foot in the door. What was that decision based on? Why not you had a sweet job lined up, civilian career and civilian life was going to be awesome. Why did you decide to stay tied up?
Great question. And these are questions a lot of people ask me the same thing too. The reason I decided to stay in is because nothing's ever guaranteed in life. You're not even the security clearance, and not even a job. You could get a job as a contractor or get a job, working somewhere, but next thing you know, things change, whether it's policies or whether it's that job itself. It's gone now. And then what are you going to do? You don't know who's holding your security clearance now. So I felt like being in the reserves allowed me to, one, retain my security clearance, and two, allowed me to retain my skill sets, my critical task or the critical technical skill sets I did hold, because within the reserves, they allowed me to go to these training events or go to additional schools in the military still. That still benefited me in the civilian side, like the more technical or advanced schools.
Totally. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you have a family at that point in time? Like, was the family aspect part of that decision-making process, or do you think that you would have done the same with or without a family?
So I didn't have a family at that time yet. Okay. I was, didn't have a child. I wasn't married. Gotcha. I was single. Gotcha. There were very little influence on the whole decision-making set. And it's funny because you and we spoke about family a lot earlier too. And that's another point I want to get into later on, how that all drives my decision nowadays where I'm at. So, but I'm sure we're going to get there. But yeah, it's interesting to see it. But yeah, I didn't have family or anybody during that time frame. I just wanted to keep pursuing, what I wanted to do, but make more money on the outside.
Gotcha.
So yeah, which is interesting because after I left active duty, a lot changed for me. I didn't realize that I just needed slow down times or some chill time. I jumped into a job that just had as much as high operations tempo as like being in special operation units, or I jumped into a job that demanded so much from me, where I actually fell into a very dark place at that time. Wow. So, and then I miss being in the military. I miss being, with the people. And it was my first position out of the military too.
Yeah.
Where it was a good job. I worked for one of the government agencies in the Northern Virginia area, which allowed me to do a lot with my skill set and send me to a lot of these training. But I also felt that it wasn't for me at that moment in time, just because I wasn't in the right headspace.
Gotcha.
As well. So
were you? Were you one of the guys that went from on Friday you're in the Army and on Monday you're working your civilian career, or did you didn't give yourself any time in between?
That's correct. Yeah. So we're Monday to Friday, I'm in my civilian career. On the 1 week in a month, I'm doing Army stuff, but the job in my civilian career also took place on the weekends as well.
Oh,
and
gosh.
Also deployed me overseas multiple times as well.
So you had a civilian job that would deploy you and the military job that was going to be deploying you and moving you around and stuff. Brutal.
There was there weren't a lot of downtime, and I realized something clicked in my mind at that moment in time where, I just need some time for myself. And I felt like finding yourself is more important than finding that cool, sexy job. And I slowly realized that, sometimes my work isn't my identity, because throughout my whole military career, everything I knew and everything I did and everything I loved was what I did in the military. And I wanted to chase that excitement, going back to why I joined the military in the first place, chasing that excitement. So I realized that, slowly that deteriorated my mental health at that moment in time. And I really needed some time off. So I actually quit that civilian job without having a backup job.
No kidding. After how long?
After about 8 months of working, I realized that I saw my bottles of wine were stacking up against my wall. Cans of beer everywhere. Everything was still in boxes. I'm sure there's listeners out there that feel the same way I felt too, and how all my things were still packed in boxes. Nothing was ever unpacked. I mean, it was definitely a dark time, I would say. And then, I'm very fortunate to be sharing this with you, actually. And thank you for doing this too, where I felt that, if I didn't stop right then and there, give myself a pause, there's going to be a lot of bad news on either end. I realized that it was deteriorating my mental health. It was deteriorating my personal life. I didn't have a relationship with my parents or my friends at time. All I did was want to work. I worked on weekends. I worked all night, things like that. So it was, it was pretty brutal. I quit that job and I bought a plane ticket to go to Vietnam, and I just, just partied in Vietnam for months.
for months, like plural?
Yeah, with the S at the end.
Wow.
So I actually took the time to go to Vietnam, and I had no intentions of wanting to work at that moment in time. I had the luxury to do it because I didn't have a family or a kid or anything like that at all. But I think that's where I realized that no matter what I do from here on out, I'm going to make sure that it benefits, not just my work life, but also my personal life as well. I took the time to take care of myself, and I took the time to realize that what I want to do in life is not just going to be about chasing that sexy job. It's going to be about supporting me and supporting people who I love.
Yeah, totally, man. I mean, I think, clearly, a lot of people during the transition kind of find themselves in a similar spot. However they got there, whatever the specific dynamics are, people find themselves in a similar spot. And so how did you justify or get to the point where it's like, I'm going to just leave my job and I'm going to go travel, rather than, allowing the kind of excuses to stack up and feel like you're trapped there? Like what did you have to let go of in order to actually allow yourself to quit?
I think that's a great question. And I think what really led me to that decision to just saying, hey, I can do this, was when I was thinking about Europe and my time in Europe and just missing traveling. The idea of being a little bit more free than where I'm at, taking vacation time, taking time off. Because in the military, our work schedule is more like we have a 4-day weekend every month. We have, yes, things are mandatory here and there, but if you could justify that, hey, all the times I don't work versus the time I work, it kind of equalize itself out. Where in a civilian workforce, you always had to, where I was at in the civilian workforce, I always had to perform 100% or else I get fired. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that what a lot of service members don't realize is that if you screw up in the military, you're still going to be a service member. You're still going to get paid. Your pay might be docked 50% off or 50% or whatever.
It is just such a, if all is the military, you think that performance is like, can I run? Can I do pull-ups? Can I shoot well? Am I okay at my job? All right, yeah, I'm a star performer if you can do those things. But in in the civilian world, performing is daily, showing up to your job and working your nuts off,
Yeah. And it's not just working. You have to make sure that yeah, I mean, things are not met to just your standards, but the standards of the people that you're supporting, the stakeholders, the decision makers at that point. Yeah, and it's important in a job, but if it's not that they can reprimand you and send you to another unit if you don't perform a civilian job, they're just going to fire you.
Mm-hmm.
And that stressor of that, I think, really took a big toll on me too, where every single day I was showing up, even though I was performing at standards, it's just still like, oh my gosh, am I doing enough? Am I doing enough? You know?
Yeah.
So I always made sure I stayed. Yeah, I always made sure I stayed super late at work, try to perform, try to do everything I can.
Yeah.
You know, and at the same time, it was a big stressor in my life overall.
Yeah.
So
I'm, you know, I think that there are certain people that like don't want to play that game. Like, you know, they don't want to show up to the office and feel like they got to keep their head above water every day of the week and feel obligated to stay late or work on the weekends. Like if somebody hears that and like, that's, you know, not that every civilian job is going to be like that, but usually the ones that pay pretty well, like they're paying you well because they expect a lot, you know?
Right.
Would you?
And sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you know, you're right. Not every civilian job is like that. I was just in a very unfortunate position at the moment in time. And I think, you know, the way I see that position itself, I was just a butt in the seat. I was just a number.
Gotcha.
If I left that day, they would not blink one. They would not give one or two blinks. They would just replace me right away.
Yeah.
So it was just a number.
Yeah.
At that moment in time. And when you feel that you're just a number in an organization, do you feel like no matter what you do, there's not much that you can change anything?
Yeah.
So I didn't feel my value being really, you know, pushed forward with it for anything. So it's I just left that position itself and just decide, hey, you know, I'm just going to take a work sabbatical.
Yeah.
And just go backpack Vietnam for a little bit.
I like it, man. Yeah. That also makes me think of something, because like a lot of people maybe that haven't been in the military, they'll think like, wait a second, you're just a number in the Army too. And it's like, yeah, like macro and macro level, like if you're in the military, yeah, you're just a number. But like once you kind of dial it in and get on the micro, it's like, I mean, the community is good. Like it's pretty, you know, the camaraderie is there that makes it feel like you're not a number, you know?
Right.
So that, you know, maybe it exists someplace in the civilian world and civilian careers, but
there are
more often than not, like even out of micro, like it's still just a number because you're not doing field exercises. You're not doing like other training things together to build that camaraderie.
But in the military, like you said, the camaraderie, you're with your boys the whole time, you know, you're with your people, you're with your tribe.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I think that was the biggest thing I was missing when I left the active duty and into, you know, the civilian sector itself. I didn't feel like I was I didn't have a tribe. I didn't have people who I felt, you know, connected to at all. So it was just by myself trying to figure out this world. We're trying to figure out what insurance to choose to, you know, what kind of jobs I want to do, what apartment I want to live in, and how much these things cost. So it was a lot to take in. And I didn't go through any of these transitioning programs that are out there, you know, like, you have like Break Line, or you have like all these groups that are out there now that people are doing, which is amazing, by the way. It's just I didn't have that opportunity when I was in. I just said, okay, I already got a job, screw everything else. And I wanted to leave so bad. I was quick to make a decision just to leave.
Tunnel vision a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I got tunnel vision chasing this excitement and didn't take time to think about myself a little bit. You know, I got tunnel vision, and it's to this day, I keep thinking about why did I make these decisions the way I do. It's just, I think a moment in time, I wanted to prove to myself too, that I can do these different things, you know, moving forward.
Yeah, totally. So I imagine staying in the reserves ended up being a really good choice for you. Like if you, I would say staying in the reserves was a great choice. I'm still in the reserves now. Nice.
You know, when I was in the reserve, like when I first got into the reserves, culture was different, but then again, same time, they were willing to work with me. Yeah. Especially my time being away and not being at these drills or battle assemblies too. Because fast forward after Vietnam, another job offered me a position to work overseas. and that was a 3 months on, 3 months off, 3 months on, 3 months off. So the reserves were able to work with me, but I was still in the game. I was still doing what I like to do, but same time now I have 3 months on, 3 months off.
And your reserve unit was cool with that.
They were
incredible.
And then they were like, "Yeah, we just make sure that you have a good year."
Yeah.
Just make sure you have a good year. I think you were a reservist as well, right?
Yeah. I spent some time in the reserves. Yeah. I mean, it is crazy going from active duty. Like you don't have a category for how like flexible the reserves can be. And I'm not saying it's always flexible, but in the right circumstance, it can be pretty wild.
Right. Sometimes, it just depends on the reserve unit that you're in as well. What organizations, who do they support? And that takes some time researching that too. Luckily, being in a metropolitan DC area, there were a lot of reserve units that had positions for intelligence, military intelligence slots. So I was very fortunate with that. And I felt like it was one big networking opportunity too in the reserves, because everyone in the reserves worked for an intelligence agency of some sort.
Yeah.
So
seriously. So you went backpacking in Vietnam for a couple months. You came back. You're feeling, revived. You take a job. Where in this timeline? What year is it at this point? 2018. And where in this timeline are you getting? I would say
it was 2018. That's correct. Mid 2018.
Okay. Where in this timeline are you finishing your undergrad? Because I know that's an important part of the, where you're going right now. So.
Right. I actually started my undergrad during the height of COVID in 2020.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Where I finished my undergrad within 2 years, just because I busted my butt, and then just kept grinding at it. I took like every 8 weeks I had between 16 to 20 semester credits that I was taking.
Brutal.
Yeah, I mean, I still maintain a 3.6 GPA. Humble brag, that one. But it's not a 4.0, but it was still a good GPA to maintain while taking that many course load while I was going overseas multiple times at the same time.
So this is an online program or in person? I imagine going overseas and stuff, it has to be online.
I would like to represent American Military University for this one.
Okay.
So yes, it was through AMU. So it was all online. However, it's one of those universities that is accepted into many other programs around the country and around the world as well.
So you were able, I imagine AMU was really good at taking, military experience and courses and transferring those into college credits through the.
That's correct.
What do they call that? I'm spacing on the joint transcript, something JEC, joint education transcript, JET. Yeah, something like that.
Something like exactly. They were really good with it because going through the career field that I went through in the military, the transferable, those skill sets are transferable to a actual 4-year college or a college nearby. And with those credits, you can actually transfer it to American Military University. So I started my undergrad program with 62 semester credits, I believe.
Cool.
Out of 120 for a bachelor. So all I had to do left was get 60 more credits.
Awesome.
And so that's where I was grinding it out all throughout 2020 to 2021 to finish my undergrad.
So 2 questions with that. One is why? Like, why did you pursue your degree if you were already you kind of got the golden goose, you're in the intel community, you had some, government contracts, jobs, whatever it was. Like, why did you want to go finish your degree?
To be honest, because my supervisor at that time told me that he would give me a bad eval that year if I don't start one college class.
Gotcha. All right.
So I actually want to give him a shout out for that.
Okay. Got it.
Anthony Zeronis, former Army as well.
Gotcha.
He was my manager overseas this time, and he was like, "I need you to start at least one class, or else I'm gonna give you a bad eval." Huh?
Are you thankful for that at this point?
Oh yeah, of course. Him and I are actually friends to this day.
Good.
And he actually lives nearby because he's a hardcore into the academic world. He has his master's in like geospatial technology or something, or data science as well. So he's all very, very pro getting your college degree, getting educated in some way or fashion, whether it's taking certifications or whether it's pursuing something of higher learning. He was all about it. So he was like, hey, and it's interesting because he was my manager, but yet he was like, a couple of years older than I was. So I saw him as a peer almost.
Yeah.
So it was almost like a peer-to-peer influence.
Nice.
So yeah. And then, I finished, I was like, I'll do a class. And I realized that one class, it was too easy. So I was like, I'll just drop 5 more.
Yeah, just kind of
it's all or nothing at this point. It's either I do it or I don't.
Yeah,
so I just grinded away. Yeah, during the height of COVID, because we weren't going anywhere anyways. And then even when I was overseas in Europe, so I was deployed, or when I say deployed, I use quotation mark behind this one. I was sent to Europe for most of my time, and during the COVID lockdowns, we couldn't go anywhere anyways. So I was just trapped in my little apartment, just doing schoolwork for all 8 to 12 hours a day.
Wow.
Every single day, the whole time. And, my wife and I, we were just dating at this time too. And she was like, yeah, what are you doing? I was like, oh, just schoolwork. But I wasn't talking to her. I was doing schoolwork.
Yeah. How did you fund your college undergrad? Did you use the GI Bill, or did you out of pocket, or what'd you do?
Initially, I used the tuition assistance. Since I was still in the reserves, I had the opportunity to use tuition assistance, which is, I believe, is like $5,000 a year or something.
Yeah.
And then every year, or that year, I realized I maxed out my tuition assistance within one semester because the amount of classes I was taking. So I did fund it out of pocket. And in the final year of my undergrad, I used my GI Bill the final 8 months, which, for going to online school, it's partial BAH at the same time. However, it's being funded 100%. Yeah. Because I was eligible for 100% GI Bill.
So how did you make the decision? I mean, I think using TA, like I totally agree with that, if you got TA available to you, but how did you make the decision to use the GI or not use the GI Bill for what TA did not cover?
I felt that I knew I was going to go pursue graduate program.
Okay.
Whether it's going for, master and, MBA, or going for a master's or whatever I want to do. Right. I knew I wanted to pursue a graduate program. So I wanted to save that money because that was probably going to cost more. It's probably going to take much more time.
Yep.
And I wanted to have the opportunity to have the opportunity for my housing incentive as well, like BH and everything, housing allowance. So I knew I was going to do that, and then and I also wanted to go to a brick and mortar school because I knew that I'm just doing this undergrad so I can get to grad school at that moment in time.
Yeah,
but that was a conscious decision, knowing that I was going to go for grad school.
Smart. And like so many people just jump at the opportunity to use the GI Bill. They're like, sweet, I get to go to like 3 classes a semester, get my BAH, and I'm like mostly doing nothing. Like they're just so eager to use the GI Bill and chill. And it can really shoot people in the foot if they jump on that opportunity without really thinking beyond what they're going to do after that. So I think having that foresight and knowing like the value of your undergrad program compared to the value of a graduate program that you would like to do in the future, they're not equal. And so getting the most out of your GI Bill for grad school is going to get you way further ahead.
Right. I totally 100% agree with that. And it's like, you only have 3 years to use that GI Bill. And what costs more at the, what's the best return of investment to use? Like, is it just suck it up and just use your, pocket money out of pocket to pay for your undergrad, so then you could afford the GI or afford grad school.
Yeah,
that's something where to consider. But that's actually a decision that you think more long term, a more strategic planning has to come in play for that one.
Totally.
So, yep.
So what's ahead? Like, I don't want to steal your thunder from it. So you're preparing to start your graduate program.
Yeah, so I finished my undergrad in December of 2021. Uh, During this time, I was thinking about what I wanted to go to grad school for. I've already been shopping around for whether I want to go to, pursue an international relations program, whether I want to pursue a program that could help support like the global community. I was thinking about all these different programs around the DC area, like schools like Georgetown, American University, George Washington University, all these schools that I thought that were, very high, like they're very high on a list for me. And then I started learning more about the MBA programs and how a lot of the MBA programs nowadays allow you to kind of drive your projects or your passion into the capstone itself. So I started diving into that. I was like, I love international relations because I've always loved like anything in regards to global diplomacy, working with across different countries. I enjoyed that a lot. So I wanted to use that knowledge, to use the learning, the teachings that I've been taught throughout my whole entire career field into this degree program. So I kind of slowed away from like the international relations realm, and I was like, what if I just propose a project within a business degree that's steered towards international relations, or especially international business or international development, right? So I then became interested in MBA programs. And not just any MBA program. I wanted to do an executive MBA program for a reason, because I wanted to surround myself with people who are more senior than me, people who I can learn from who are already in the industry. I wanted to find a program that has a holistic approach to allowing you to keep a full-time job and still make money and still go to school at the same time.
So break down one. I gotta preface this because I know you're the enlisted side. I'm from the enlisted side, and if I'm just gonna make a blanket assumption that could be totally wrong. Like I thought MBAs were just kind of like a graduate level basket weaving degree. Like I just thought it was like a generic like everybody gets an MBA, and like who knows what you gotta do with it. And I that's the way I thought of it until I started following sit reps on Instagram.
Yeah.
He has tons of value on the MBA.
He's great content, and this is pretty much product placement for him right now too.
Yeah, right.
And then I feel like the value of MBA is very versatile.
Yeah.
Where it could be applied in anything you could think of. Like for example, they have within the MBA program, there's curriculum that's designed to let you think about financial technology, allows you to explore data analysis, that allows you to explore maybe entrepreneurship and startups. You have a lot of options within the program itself for the business degree that you could pursue, not just like one track. I mean, there are programs like that where you could pursue one track, but I feel like you could drive where you want to pursue your passion too. And the MBA program, after reading a lot about it, I felt like it was the best return of investment. Totally. Because a lot of people I spoke to, the alumni from MBA programs themselves, they were just telling me that they were all veterans as well. They were like, we get offered a job like 6 months prior to graduation. You already have a networking opportunities within the cohort itself. They already know people already. And I felt like, for this time, I wanted to pursue that program because one, it's the fastest return of investment from, myself and my family. And two, it's going to provide me the holistic education. Because it's just like the military, you make what you put into it. Yeah. If you want to drive your research, drive your projects towards a certain career field, then that's what you want to do. For example, I chose to do an MBA, but I want to focus on data analytics or business analytics. That's what I want to push towards. And you're able to do that, especially with the curriculum that I looked into. So I wanted to, I felt strong about the MBA, and it's not common in my research that enlisteds go through this program because it was I felt like it was very officer heavy because a lot of the veterans I spoke to were all officers,
Yeah.
And it was kind of a point I want to make too. I was like, you know what? I want to put my name in the hat for this one.
Mm.
So I started shopping for MBA programs. I started looking into like schools like Georgetown, NYU, Wharton, UPenn, Wharton School of Business and everything. I looked at Cornell. I looked at all these different programs, and what I was shopping for was what fits my, my passion, what spoke to me the most. And the way I did that was I had my own interview with the people in that program. Do I jive with them? Do we have the same vibe? What's going on?
Yeah. So you were interviewing them as much as they were interviewing you.
Yeah, it's funny. The mission committee was going to interview me, but I was taking my time to interview the alumni in current cohort.
Cool.
So I took the time to interview people from over 18 different schools for an MBA program.
Wow.
18 or 19. I have a whole list on my Excel spreadsheet of all the people I start interviewing and start talking to. Yeah. And these are all techniques I've learned as an agent, of course, from the Army side, where I'm just trying to find out. I'm just fact finding.
Yeah.
Trying to find more information.
Totally. So first explain, give a brief overview of the difference between an executive MBA and an MBA.
It just depends on what school it is, but the overview of what the difference between executive and a regular MBA is that, so the executive MBA is designed for professionals, and that's already in the industry, like someone who's already worked in the industry post their bachelor program for past 10 years or 12 years. Yeah. Because what they're looking for people, then it's not just an instructor to student teaching, it's more of a peer-to-peer teaching as well. So they're looking for folks that have X amount of years of experience, depending on what school it is. They're looking for people with a diverse background. They're looking for someone who already kind of have a brand of their own too. I've noticed that, especially because they're really big on asking, "Hey, where do you work at now?" That's what the admission committees are asking me.
Gotcha.
Where do you work at now? What do you want to do? How much do you make? As well.
Really?
It's interesting what they ask, because I feel like, they're looking for ways to grow their own program as well. And they're people with certain background. So I chose the executive MBA because I felt that it was more conducive to my work-life balance. It would benefit me financially in the long run too, because some programs are still considered full-time programs. Even though you only show up for 2 weekends a month. By the way, the schedule is for most executive MBAs are show up for 2 weekends a month.
Gotcha.
Or show up for 3 weekends a month, or every other week or something like that, or 1 week a semester.
So
that's
it's
what the schedule is like.
When you're there, it's brutal, pedal to the metal all day long.
It's for 7 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Gotcha.
A lot of these programs are designed for that. Yeah, because it's still a full-time course itself versus the regular MBA. You're there Monday to Friday sometimes, you're a student full-time. Where at executive, you're a professional full-time, but a student part-time, but still coded as a full-time program.
Yeah. Are all MBAs created equal?
No.
Okay.
I feel like after my extensive research, exploring all the schools along the East Coast, a couple West Coast schools and everything, it's all just depends on the program itself. So I did an interview with MIT Sloan, and I realized that their MBAs are designed for folks that have over almost 20 years experience in.
Wow.
That have the average age for people they accept are 41, 42 years old.
Wow. No kidding.
Yeah, that are at least a director level and up for the business school at MIT for their executive MBA. It's because I feel like a lot of their programs all steer towards, science, technology as well.
Yeah.
That program at Georgetown for their executive MBA, it's anywhere between 8 to 12 years experience. The one at Cornell was 12 years experience.
Gotcha.
So these are all different programs, and they're all designed differently based on what kind of school they are too, what their focus is.
Okay. And so you just accepted an offer from, who was it?
Cornell. I recently got accepted into Cornell Johnson School of Business or Johnson School of Management, and
Congratulations.
thank you. And that program itself was my number one choice too.
Cool.
To go to Cornell. One, the fact that it's a prestigious Ivy League school.
Yeah.
It's one of the top 20, and I also really felt the vibe and the culture there.
Cool.
I had a mentor in that program who actually, him and I clicked the moment I connected with him on LinkedIn. I cold called him. And then he was like, dude, let me tell you everything about this program, everything, what I hate about, what I don't like about, what I love about it. He was also a Army reservist as well. He's a 03 in the reserves right now.
Gotcha. Cool.
So, yeah. And then he actually mentored me through a day in the life of his classes. And, kind of taught me everything he's doing and, the people he's interacting with. Because Cornell has like two different programs. So it's for the MBAs, for Executive Mba. So I had to choose between which one I wanted to go to.
Okay. And so you actually tagged along with him for a day and went to his classes and stuff?
No, I didn't go to his classes. Everything was virtual. I did a little small talk with him on because he was all in New York City and I'm in DC area.
Gotcha.
But he was able to give me updates on the courses he's taken, the people who's in that class, the profiles, everything, and what he's learning, what he's not learning. Cool. So I was actually getting to experience a lot of this secondhand, and I felt like I really vibed with the community that's up there. So after speaking with the admission committees, and that's another big thing too, I had great relationship with the admission committee from day one. I took the time to, have these conversations week after week, just follow up on, hey, I just want to know more about the school. I want to tell you more about myself. How can I be value to the organization as a whole? It's almost like a job interview. You're always being assessed as well. So
yeah. How are you planning to maximize your GI Bill during this? Like, it is the GI Bill just going to cover the program, or do you have to finagle and look for some other opportunities? So
the GI Bill is I'm a Virginia State resident, so the GI Bill will be $27,000, I believe a year from my state, but Cornell covers I think most of it with the Yellow Ribbon program, because if you have 100%, if you're eligible for 100% GI Bill, the Yellow Ribbon will cover that as well. But there will be some costs depending on which semester it is that you still have to come out of pocket for. In order to kind of cover that gap. For that, I'm pursuing a couple of scholarships on my end. Cool. And those are kind of like scholarships such as the Tillman Scholar, which for those who are not familiar, the Pat Tillman Foundation has a scholarship for veterans who wants to be the change in the world that we live in today. So I felt like that was a great scholarship to pursue. There's a couple of business scholarships too that for veterans, minorities, and going forth with that. And also the BH is New York City BH too, because the Executive Mba, the campus is in New York City. So I'll actually be getting $3,300 a month.
Wild.
For that BH.
Wild.
So I'm only showing up 2 weekends a month.
Yeah, man. I mean, so right there, you just listed off a bunch of funding opportunities. I mean, scholarships, Yellow Ribbon program, GI Bill, and I had a misunderstanding of what the Yellow Ribbon program really was. And a couple months back, I made a video on it, and it's way more case by case scenario than I ever thought. It's like, the school kind of drives if it's going to cover the rest. It's usually a dollar for dollar split between the school and the VA, but not every school is going to actually cover the difference. You might still be on the hook for some money, or they might only award it to 10 people out of the class. So it's worth doing the homework on that for anybody that's looking into it.
Right. And for the listeners too, not every program is the same, just like not every MBA is the same at all either. And, just to caveat on that, every school has different funding from, I guess, the VA and everything too for the yellow ribbon. So sometimes the yellow ribbon may cover it for 1 year and the other year it doesn't cover it.
Yeah.
I've learned that. I don't know every detail of it. I'm not the person to talk to about that, but I do know that for my program, I still have to come out of pocket a little bit of it. And that's where I pursue these other opportunities to fund the program. I mean, a lot of time, the veterans who attend these programs, they use their BAH to cover the difference for that as well. So, but I like money, and I like to keep my BH.
I was gonna say, do whatever you can to keep it, but sometimes it's worth, giving up your BAH in order to get the value of the program. So
I mean, it's a $202,000 program. One of the top schools in the country, and then and then the networking opportunity with that too. It's going to be, the return on investment is there because I believe Cornell has one of the top programs too for their career development office, where they help people get into certain positions, certain jobs, like before they graduate too.
Yeah,
they actually have one of the top programs for that. And then after doing research, I felt like it was the best option for potential opportunities in the future.
Yeah,
and then I think overall that program is gonna. I mean, it's definitely a life changer. It's a humbling experience because, and Jason, you and I, we've talked about this before too, where everything that got me up to this point was from the support of my family and my friends, and then there were people around me, the people who mentored me through this process. And I would have not been here at all without them, whether it's everything from the mental or the, all the issues, I've had, psychologically to, where I was at. So I felt like, without the support of my mentors and my family, I would not be here to take these opportunities. And I wanted to kind of take this opportunity to kind of go forward where, hey, I want to be able to pay it forward. And that's why, I feel like this podcast is an amazing opportunity of what you're doing, where we are able to pay it forward to other veterans too and share stories.
100%. Yeah, man. Yeah. It's as much as we, our ego might like to tell us that we got here on our own. We didn't. And it's always by the grace and the help of those that are close to us.
Yeah, right. And then I realized that too. My wife, she's about to be a full-time mother in the next 3 months, so I could pursue this program. Pursue the program and still work a full-time job at the same time. And she understands how important, what this means for us as a family.
Yeah.
And it's not just getting a college degree for me. This is kind of trailblazing for my generation, my family who never went to college, never did any of that.
Totally.
And it kind of like show an example of what we can provide for future generations, like our children that we have too, saying, hey, we have these opportunities, you can pursue it if you want to, and it's there for you.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's huge. Yeah, it's that's a good wife right there. She's enabling you to do that kind of thing. That's
she's amazing, and then it's where we have I feel like you can attest to this too, where having our 3.5-month-old now, really puts things in perspective, where everything we do isn't for us, it's for family, 100%. To be able to. And then I feel like, a lot of times there's a stigma, or better yet, a lot of people I remember when I was younger, a lot of people were telling me, oh, if you have kids, you're not going to do anything anymore, or nothing's ever going to get done. Or, I was like, actually, I think that's wrong. I think having a kid actually motivates me more.
Yeah.
To want to keep pursuing the next step. I think you can attest to that too, being a father and doing what you do now.
Yeah. It's one of those cliches that you never know what it's like being a parent or whatever whatever parents are saying. But it definitely, it changes your world, and it gives you different priorities, and it's when before you have a kid, you're like, oh, I don't need a kid, and then you have a kid, and you're like, it's the best thing ever, even though
oh my gosh,
it makes
it's amazing,
more difficult. Yeah.
And yeah. I mean, you do have to prioritize time of management, be efficient with your time, and understanding that every minute is valuable at the moment, just like anything else, you know. So it's a kind of taking the time to do that. And, you know, having a kid now, I'm like, all right, I still want to do the cool things I used to do, like travel. And then I'm going to make sure that I can do that by putting myself in a position that would be able to afford it too in the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so that's where I'm at now. And with my life and everything, I want to be able to share the world, what I knew, to my daughter by, you know, putting myself in a good jobs, good position, and then, pursuing education that would land me better opportunities in the future. So, and then if, for all those that's listening out there, I feel like you have that opportunity for education. Take advantage of it. I know that it might sound dumb now, or it might not make sense now, but at the same time, I feel like we served in the military. We now have an opportunity to do more as well through education.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
totally agree, man. Totally agree.
Yeah. And then another thing too is, like, you know, understanding that transitioning to civilian life, nothing's ever owed to you. You're not entitled to anything. Just because I mean, yeah, being a veteran is, you know, a different level of status and everything, but at the same time, don't go into a job thinking they're going to hire you just because you're a veteran.
Yeah. 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 It's gosh, dude. So many people, like, you know, they just kind of rest in their laurels of like, yeah, I was in the Marine Corps, I was in the Army, like I'm a vet, like I'll get any job, I'll get into any school. It's like, yeah, whatever, dude. Like,
Okay.
it's gonna be a rude wake up. Yeah,
it is. And I think it's definitely a pride check, you know, because I felt that, you know, I was on top of the world at one point in time, and I realized I hit rock bottom before I even knew it, because my mental state wasn't in the right place. And then it's a reality check of itself, where you just have to, I think the most important thing is you defining yourself as a person, not necessarily what's on your resume, but defining yourself as a person. And then finding something that makes you happy, pursuing passion projects, pursuing what you want to do, whether you want to start a business or whether you want to go to school, whether you want to do certain jobs, sure, you know, or even start a family. It's just defining who you are as a person.
Yeah.
So, and then we just have to be in a good mental space. And then that's why I kind of started this whole entire program where I want to start helping transitioning veterans, where now it's all about trying to share my stories and hear their stories at the same time, especially, you know, those of us who got out at a junior level position, whether we've only spent 6-7 years in the military, or whether we spent, you know, between a time frame where it wasn't our life yet, and we have a lot more that we want to do. So I spend a lot of time helping those guys out, because they're not committing their careers to the military. They want to do something else, and I want to help them bridge that gap, because so many times in SFL TAP or the transition assistance program itself, it's being taught by somebody who's done 20 plus years. And then they're like, oh, it's all good, man. Just go to this website, put your resume up there. You know, that's how you do it. Yeah. It's not that easy sometimes. You know, they can speak for it because they have 20 years in, but I'm like, dude, what if somebody with 5 years of experience? You know, so.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's always funny that the people that typically teach those seminars are like, career military, and then they just kind of transition into like the government role. And it's like, well, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's hard for a person like that to give adequate advice for somebody who wants to get involved in, you know, private corporate America kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's definitely a transition itself. I recently left the Department of Defense DoD space and the intelligence community space last month, and started and pivoted myself into financial consulting, or consulting in the financial industry now. Cool. And it's definitely a different community, because I could tell you that out of a whole department that I work under, I'm the only former service member, or the only veteran out of hundreds and hundreds of employees.
Wow.
Yeah. And so the culture is different. Understanding that, you know, they don't understand, because one of the first things that people ask me are like, oh, you were in the military, did you go overseas? You know, some of these questions that get brought, I mean, they don't understand that life or anything. That at the same time, I'm not trying to share that as like that's all that I do. I want to learn from them too. So it's almost, if I were to pick an analogy towards this, I want to say it's almost like, someone who wants to learn English, but you're trying to learn their language as well. And then at the same time, they don't want to speak in that native language because they're trying to learn your language, but you're trying to learn their language.
Yeah.
So it's a cultural language that I'm trying to learn, but it's hard because everyone wants to learn my world too.
Yeah. 100%, man. 100%. Awesome, Victor. Well, I don't want to keep you this evening too long. I've really enjoyed hearing your story. Dude, I'm so stoked for the next chapter of your life. And as you continue the, Executive MBA program and move on in your career, that's huge. So I look forward to staying in touch and hearing how that program goes for you.
Thank you, Jason. And I definitely want to keep you updated as time goes on too, just because I'm not finished with the program or anything, but I definitely want to share experiences going through the MBA almost in real time in the future too. And then how we can work together to help transitioning veterans or those who are trying to pivot into different career fields as well. And I appreciate everything you're doing on this podcast and everything that, what you're trying to represent, especially for the veteran community. So thank you again, Jason. I appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. Where can anybody who wants to, pick your brain on your route and your path and how you're getting into Cornell, where can these people get in contact with you?
So you can find me on, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and the way you find me, I have a very long name, and it'll probably be in the description on your YouTube
I will
channel.
Link it in the description.
So please do find me through that channel. I'm very active just because I use it a lot for networking with academia to other industries for what I do in the consulting world as well. And I'm actually very active in that world, and especially branching with other transitioning vets. So please reach me on my LinkedIn, which will be in the description. So
perfect.
Thank you, Jason.
Perfect. Awesome, Victor. Well, thanks so much for the time, man. I'm excited for you, and I really enjoyed hearing your story. So we'll stay in touch and I'll talk to you soon.
Have a good night.
Thanks, man. Hey, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that episode with Victor. Like I said, Victor is a wealth of knowledge and has literally a decade plus of experience in both military and in civilian and federal employment doing intel work. And now he's on to bigger and better things within consulting, MBA, and in the finance community. And so he's got a bright future ahead of him. And I really appreciate his outlook on life and the value that he's taken and the lessons that he's learned throughout this process. And so if you guys think that you would connect well with Victor, I highly recommend you following the link in the description. Reach out to him on LinkedIn. He's one of those real professionals that hangs out on LinkedIn. I'm not a real professional that hangs out on LinkedIn. So if you want to reach me, you can reach me on Instagram at Military Bottom Line. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time. See you later.